Hey, this is Brett Gursky. Welcome to another episode of On the List. This is episode number 56. It's October 2020. We're coming to you from the BLEAV podcast network. My guest today is a very good friend of mine. We go way back to 2006 to be exact. She's been a reality star, an actress, a TV host, and she's currently a New York Times best-selling author. You loved her on Laguna Beach and the Hills and very Cavallari. Of course, I'm talking about KRISTIN Cavallari.
Hi, I'm so
Hey,
happy to see
I'm
you.
happy to see you too. It's been a while.
I know.
Uh, that introduction, who else could I be talking about? The star of Very Cavallari. It's only got to
Yeah.
be KRISTIN Cavallari. You've been posting on Instagram a lot lately, and it seems like you're doing very well, very happy, having a lot of fun. Very happy to see that. Uh,
Yeah, thank you.
you're doing well. And you have the number three book on the New York Times bestsellers list, True
Yeah,
Comfort.
there you have it. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm pumped. I mean, I poured my heart and soul into that cookbook. This is my third book and the one
Right.
that I'm most proud of. So to be that high on the list is a huge accomplishment. So I'm very, very happy.
On the list. That's the name of this podcast.
Look at that, full circle.
Full circle. But yeah, I mean, New York Times bestsellers list is you can't get better than that. And out of every book for sale in the country, number three, that's major. Uh,
Thanks.
it's awesome. We're going to talk all about the book in a little bit. First, I wanted to mention this is my first episode of the podcast over Zoom because of what's going on in the world. So
Yeah.
you get to be my first Zoom guest.
I'm honored.
I'm flattered to have you. It's a different kind of year, and with social distancing and quarantining, we're moving it to Zoom for now. But the bright side of that, the silver lining, is that now we have a video. So if people want to watch the video, they can watch it on, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever we put it. And it's kind of just like an added component to the podcast. So that's nice.
Yeah, I think that that's great.
It's cool, yeah. And fun fact, Kristen was actually on episode 2 of the podcast over the phone. Remember that?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that was a long time ago. How many years? That was when Camden was a baby,
Yeah,
right?
so Camden was just born, and you called in,
Wow.
and it was your first interview as a mom.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah,
then
yeah, yeah. So that was 8 years ago.
8 years ago, that's when we started. Yeah, episode 2.
Wow.
And I remember People Magazine told you, like, can Brett Gursky's podcast please come out after
That's
our
right.
photo shoot? Because we want the exclusive.
That's right. Oh my
Yeah.
God, how funny is that?
That was cool.
Wow.
I thought that was cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if anyone wants to hear that, they can go back to episode 2 of On the List. It's a little interview at the beginning. But this episode is going to be the definitive Kristen Cavallari interview. We're going to get into
Yes.
everything. It's going to be
Yes.
awesome. Let's start with a little backstory. So we first met in 2006, coming up on 15 years.
Wow.
And I know the exact date we met because what was the event? Do you remember the event?
Yes, it was the Cosmopolitan Fun Fearless Male Awards in
Yeah,
LA.
correct.
Yeah, I
And
remember.
yeah, you were 19. I think you just moved to LA.
Yeah.
I'd been there, I was like 25. I'd been there maybe 3 or 4 years. And I have a photo, let's see if it comes up,
Oh my God.
of us from that night.
Oh, babies, Gursky, look how little we both
I mean,
look.
literally, babies. And the reason we have a photo, the wire image photographer came over and he was like, can I get a picture of you guys, not knowing we had just met and didn't really know each other. So we have literally a picture of the moment we met, which is pretty
I love that. Will you
like,
send that to me? I wanna have that. I
yeah.
wanna keep
And
it.
if anyone else wants it, just Google our names, then it comes
Yeah, you too
up.
can have it.
Yeah. Um, so I actually remember leaving the party. I think you had left first, and then I went outside and you were waiting at the valet.
Yeah.
And I remember I was like, I'm gonna wait here to make sure this girl gets home okay. Like took you under my
Oh,
wing, and here we are, 15 years later, still friends.
I love it. I know that's awesome.
Wow, we've had a fun 15 years. We've been in LA, we've been in OC, Miami for New Year's a bunch of times, Vegas for your
Yeah.
25th birthday, New York,
Yeah.
Nashville. You know what? We
Yeah.
still need to do Chicago together. I've never done Chicago.
Let's do Chicago together. That'll be next on the list. We've covered a lot of ground, but yeah,
Next,
that's one we need to do
next on the list. On the
on
list.
the list.
But yeah, when I think back to those times, that there were probably more nightclubs than I can count.
I
Uh,
know.
you taught me about chilled Grey Goose shots with Diet Coke chasers.
Yep. That was my move in my early 20s.
Did you stop? Have you stopped doing that? No
Oh
more yet?
God, yeah, no, I don't do shots anymore. I'm like, ugh,
Wow.
that's a recipe for disaster.
Right. Those were a staple. Those were a Kristen staple back then.
Yeah.
When I first got into doing nightlife stuff, actually, one of the first parties I did was Randy Gerber's place, Stone Rose Lounge.
Yeah.
And we launched the whole thing with your 21st birthday in
That's right.
2008. Yeah. And it was the night of the Cloverfield premiere. So everyone came over from that movie
Yeah.
premiere, and Paris Hilton came, and it was all
Yeah.
paparazzi pictures. It was such a wild night. And I remember
Yes.
Randy Gerber brought George Clooney, and
Yeah, oh my God. I tell that story all the time. Everyone's like, is there a time that you've been starstruck? I'm like, actually, yes. It was when a mutual friend introduced me to George Clooney, and I was like, hi, I'm Kristen. And then literally like no words came out of my mouth. And then like girls just like flanked him, and I was like, all right, bye.
yeah, that's a great story.
Yeah.
See, it all began back then, and that your 21st birthday literally launched this Wednesday night party in LA that Adam Franklin and I did for two
Yeah.
years.
Oh my God, that is awesome. I love it.
It
It's so
was
fun to
awesome.
take a trip down memory lane.
Oh yeah, today is going to be a big trip down memory lane. I hope you're ready for it. Speaking of reminiscing, something I want to mention: this week you filmed a Laguna Beach reunion. What
Yeah.
can you tell me about that? What did you
Yeah,
get?
I mean, it was so much fun. That's the first time that we have all, quote unquote, been together since high school, since we stopped filming, and so it was really good to see everybody. And it was fun. We played a drinking game. We answered fan questions and just kind of, reminisced about the show and everything. And then we're all in this group email, and afterwards everybody was like, "I love you. It was so good to see everybody." Like, it was really fun. I feel like that group of people. It was the cast of season 1.
Right.
So I think more than
OG.
anybody else, like we will always be so bonded and so connected just because we all experienced that together at the same time that nobody else will ever understand. So it was cool to see everybody.
The ultimate high school reunion.
Yeah, it was really fun.
That's cool. Who was there? Can you tell us who was there?
Yeah, so it was the entire cast of season 1. So, Stephen, Lauren Lowe, Christina, Morgan, Trey, Dieter, Polster, and then, Talon,
Of course.
and me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so fun.
Talon Torriero became a good friend of mine. I love Talon.
That's right. I know. He's the best.
We used
He's
to hang
still,
a lot.
I feel like everybody was the exact same, It was like no time had passed. So it was
Well,
really cool.
but Talon has a whole new life in Nebraska. He married Danielle. They had a baby. They moved to Nebraska.
I think he's about to have another baby too.
Oh,
So,
right. That's right.
yeah. Yeah. I didn't realize he was in Nebraska though. That didn't
Yeah.
come up at the reunion.
Yeah. He's not exactly the
Wow. That's
same.
cool.
Yeah, exactly. And how are things with you and Lauren Conrad? Because everyone's going to be asking that.
Right.
Are you guys friends?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, totally fine. I think so much time has passed, and what we went through was so silly, and it was so high school that,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure we're both over it at this point.
Yeah. And she's married with kids too. She married our friend William Tell. We used to
Yes,
hang
who used to be at Stone Rose.
out every Wednesday. He used to
Yeah.
perform. He's a musician.
Yes.
I don't know if people
Yeah.
realize he was in
That's
something
right.
corporate, I believe. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's wild to see where everyone ended up, and we were all these like kids starting out in LA together, and now people are married with kids. Speaking of Stephen Coletti, you brought him up. He's your high school boyfriend.
Yeah.
Everyone knows that. You posted a photo on Instagram with him recently and broke the internet. People lost their minds. You were sitting on his lap, and the caption was like, "Is this 2004?" And people went
2004 or 2020, and everyone's like, "Oh my God!"
totally.
Yeah,
And so
yeah.
what?
I mean, I knew that it was gonna create a little commotion. I didn't know to what degree. That's my most liked photo on Instagram ever. Like more than my kids. Like more than like anything in my life. Like that photo with Steven, which is cool. I mean, I think it's really neat that people are still so invested, and it like really
Right,
takes people back to that time. And
right.
then, of course, everyone was like, "Oh my God, are they back together?" I love Steven. I've always loved Steven, and clearly, I mean, 15 years later, we're still really good friends. But no, I mean, I brought my kids to Laguna Beach. I saw a lot of people. I didn't just see Steven, like I
Right,
saw Alex Merle and her kids, and like a bunch of
right.
people. So it was a really fun trip. But yeah, that's all there is to it.
Of course. Yeah. Steven's a good guy. I'm friends with him too.
Yeah, he's the best.
I saw him at the Mammoth Film Festival last year. He's, making movies and pilots.
Yeah,
He created his own show.
he's writing. He's doing
Right
all
about.
kinds of stuff. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
really happy for
But
him.
isn't it crazy people are still fascinated with your love life since you're 17 years old?
I know, it's
It,
pretty wild.
right. Like you're just living your life and the world is
Yeah,
watching. I
I
always find that
know.
to be interesting.
It is interesting, and it's yeah, I don't really quite know what to make of it. I don't know. It's
Well,
weird.
if you Google yourself this week, there's a lot of speculation. Is Kristen back in the dating scene? People are wondering. So I wanted to give you a chance to clear the air. What's going on in your life? What can you talk about?
Why
So
did
that
I think
there.
you wouldn't ask me about this? I was like, a Gursky won't go down that
No, no,
road.
no. I don't want any specifics. I just want you to say whether you're.
Listen, Here's what I'm doing right now. I'm going through a divorce, obviously, and I'm putting myself first. I mean, my kids will always be first, but
Right.
beyond my kids, I'm making myself a priority right now. And I don't want anything. I'm not ready to jump into a relationship. I'm not, I'm taking care of me, and I'm figuring out ultimately what I'm going to want in life. And I'm going through the motions and the process of figuring that all out.
Perfect answer. No, that's why I wanted to give you a chance with me to
Thank
clear
you.
the air. Exactly. No, nothing specific. I would never do that. So let's talk about 2020 and the months leading up to the book, True Comfort.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's been a unique year to say the least. It felt like time stopped in March because the lockdown started basically Friday the 13th, March 13th.
Oh, wow.
And then
Yeah.
that weekend, the world shut down.
Yeah.
Here's what's crazy: 8 days earlier, on March 5th, you had a party for your jewelry line, Uncommon James, in LA at Gracias Madre. And I went to the party to come see you, and the world still felt pretty normal on March 5th.
Mhm.
Like we were in
Mhm.
a crowded place and celebrating and having fun. I went to Craig's after for dinner across the
Yeah.
street, which I haven't been to since because of what's
Yeah.
going on. And you know, how did that feel that to throw the last party before the lockdown?
Well, so it's interesting because I was in LA doing press for the spring Uncommon James collection. And
Right.
then right after that, I went to New York. I went home to Nashville for a couple days, and then I went to New York for like 24 hours. And like, so in LA, it was like people had just started kind of talking about it, but it felt totally normal. And then when I was in
Right.
New York, I did an editor's brunch, and some people couldn't come because of COVID. And I remember being in New York and like getting anxiety almost, like I got to get out of this city. Like it felt weird. It felt really weird. And that was the first time I was like, whoa, what is actually happening? Went
Right.
home, and then we actually had spring break planned. We had planned it for months. And it wasn't weird enough yet where we were like, we probably shouldn't go. It was like, okay, well, we're going to go, and then we'll like see what happens. Long story short, we went to the Bahamas.
Right.
It was Jay, the kids, and I, and then Justin and Scoot, Justin, my best friend, and his fiance.
Yeah.
And when we got there, that's like really when everything was like, whoa, like, okay, lockdown. And we were like, oh, wait, we were like, what do we
Yeah.
do?
How do we get
And
back into the country?
yeah. And then so we were there, and then there was this really short, it was like a 2-day window where they were like, listen, if you guys don't leave in the next two, like you can leave these 2 days. If you don't leave, we don't know when you're going to be able to leave. And I was like, get me off of this island. I was like, I need to go home. And so, but we ended up being there for almost a month,
Right.
which was crazy.
It,
Which
it looked
in
like you were
hindsight,
having a
like,
pretty good quarantine. From your Instagram, I was like, their quarantine's not too bad.
yeah, no, it was great. It could have been worse for sure.
Right.
But then, yeah, so we came home, and then obviously, we all know what happened. It was crazy. But yeah, so what a wild ride it's been.
What was right? I did the first 4 months, just me and Buddy, my dog, in LA, and then in July, I did it. I flew to New Jersey for my twin niece's birthday, and I've been here ever since. I've been on the East Coast, kind of
Oh
just
wow, so you haven't come home?
loving it. No, I mean,
Wow.
I live in both places, I feel like, but you know what? I'm just kind of riding it out, enjoying the
Yeah.
time with family. I'm being the ultimate uncle. It's like I'm going to my
Mhm.
nephew's lacrosse games and my niece's softball games and helping with homework. And we went to the
Aw.
beach one day and watched the sunrise, went another day and watched the sunset, like pumpkin patch.
Cute.
Yeah, so it's this
See,
time.
that's the good thing. It's like if you can just try to stay positive and look at how
Right.
it's really like that's what I think about with my kids. Like I'll never get that time back with my kids. You know what I
Exactly.
mean? And so I kind of just looked at it like that and took advantage of the situation and just loved on my babies as much as possible. Cause it's like now my kids are back in school. They've been in school since early August. And it's like, that's now gone.
Right.
Those months of just like having them to myself, it's all gone now.
It
So
was
it's
this time no one ever expected to have. And so as
yeah,
long as you were healthy and safe, you could look at the bright side of it.
exactly.
And so in April 2020, and I only bring this up because you've been talking about it publicly, you announced that you were getting divorced. And in May 2020, you announced that you were ending Very Cavallari, your hit
Yeah.
TV show. So walk me through like April and May, what you went through, like your mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, God, it's so interesting to think about it now. So I was in the Bahamas for a month, and we knew what was happening, Jay and I. And so we came home and we're separated. And then, we obviously made the decision to get a divorce. And, it's interesting because it's like, whenever someone's announcing that they're getting a divorce, like we didn't make that decision last night. And then all of a sudden we put it out there, it had been coming for a long time. And so by that point, it was almost like a sense of relief. Like I was just relieved to get it out there and to start this next phase of my life. But still very sad and very up and down. And it still is. It's been a roller coaster. I mean, it's sad when you close a chapter of your life. And Jay and I were together for 10 years. I mean, we have 3 kids together.
Right.
I will always love Jay in some capacity. And so it's tough. But yeah. And then, the decision to end the show, I was like getting anxiety. It sounds like I get anxiety. I literally don't get anxiety at all.
Never.
But like these two things are like, so the show was really weighing heavily on me, and I was really nervous, and I wanted to make sure I just knew what was going to happen, because last season I had an issue with a girlfriend, and I didn't even like the way that was handled. And I had to talk about it more than I ever in a million years would have. And, it turned into way more than it ever would have. And I didn't want that to happen with the divorce. I have 3 little kids. They are the most important thing to me. And I don't want to ever have to expose that and have them see that one day. And, I got what I needed from the show. I got the exposure that I wanted for Uncommon James. That's why I did it. And so it wasn't worth it to me. I've never been the kind of person to just, whore out my life, my personal life for my own personal gain. That's not who I am. And so I care more about Jay and our family than being on a TV show.
Yeah, absolutely. I think people were surprised, for a few reasons, like because they see you guys on the show and you seem so happy on the show, but also because we had just seen all your posts from the Bahamas and it looked like you guys were on this fun family vacation, and then the announcement came out. So I think that's why there was so much shock behind it, And
yeah, I know.
But yeah, I reached out to you that day. I was even surprised. I didn't know that it was coming. I felt emotionally invested in that relationship. I've watched you guys since you started dating. I was at the wedding in Nashville.
Yeah.
I got credit. I got a little credit from the maid of honor, Stephanie Beagle, for helping get you guys back together at one point.
Oh my God, that's right.
During her speech, she mentioned Jay recruited Brett Gursky to, help win you back.
That's right.
Yeah,
That's right.
He was very smart. He knew that if he was in with me, when I talked to you about him, I'd only say good things.
It's so true. That's so true. And he did the same thing with Beegs,
Right.
He got all my best friends on his side to be like, Jay,
Yeah, Jay's the best. No, but I did.
Yeah,
I like him.
Jay.
Yeah, but I do like Jay, and I liked you guys
he's great.
together. Yeah, and I was bummed to hear that news. And I'm glad you're doing okay. The kids are doing okay. I think the grass is always greener. It's like when you're married with kids, you wonder if you're missing out on what your single friends are doing, or when you're single and you see your married friends with kids, you're like, I want that. So it's
it had nothing to do with that though.
No, I know.
In fact, I used to be like, oh God, the thought of dating is like, I don't want to date. Like,
Right.
And I mean, listen, there's good things about both. Like, there's nothing like those new feelings in the beginning where you get so excited and that's great. But I actually prefer what I had with Jay, where you're so comfortable with somebody, they're your best friend. It's like so easy and great. That's way more interesting to me than like these new little butterflies. But we just couldn't make it work. And I really do mean, like, I love Jay. I will always love Jay. He's a great guy. But unfortunately we just couldn't figure it out.
Couldn't figure it out. Well, you'll always be in each other's lives. You have kids.
Yeah.
And so, what was interesting about ending Very Cavallari, I thought, was that the season finale, which ended up being the series finale, it's about you opening an Uncommon James store in Chicago. And Chicago is where you were born and raised. Chicago is where your mom lived. Chicago is where you met Jay. Chicago is where all 3 kids were born. And now you're opening Uncommon James, like a amazing store in Chicago. It felt like your whole life had come full circle. And so the finale felt like a finale. It was like a natural place to end the show anyway.
There you go. That's true. I never thought of it like that. But yeah, you're right.
So I'm sure if you ever wanted to go back, you could knock on E's door and say, ready for more Very Cavallari.
Let's pick it back up 10 years later. I'm all good.
Do you think you would do it again? Would you do it again?
I don't know. I mean, to be honest, the only reason why I initially did Very Cavallari was for Uncommon James.
Yeah.
But I'm really happy I went back because I had such a great experience and I was an executive producer and I was involved in the creative conversations and I had the time of my life. I'm so, so happy that I did it.
Yeah.
But I've actually never been someone who is just like wanting to talk about my personal life all the time. Even though I come from reality TV and I've been doing it since I was 17, I've never been 100% comfortable with it.
Right.
And I don't think so. Like, I really like where my life is now. All I want to do is, like this morning, well, today I'm not at the office, but like take my kids to school in the morning, go to the office. Because I'm the boss, I can make my own hours. I leave by like 2:30. I pick up my kids, I make dinner, you know, the bedtime routine. Maybe I'll lay in the sauna for a little bit. I don't know. But like my life is boring and I'm okay with that. I'm just really happy right now doing that.
Yeah.
And so that's all I want to do. I don't know. The pressure of reality TV, it's a lot. I'm so much more relaxed now that I know that the show is not on my radar.
Yeah. One thing that's interesting about you actually is that you'd be shooting a reality show, but also living your real life. It was like these two parallel universes.
Yeah.
I was part of your real life and not part of the Hills. And I was like hanging out with you in real life. And then you'd be like, okay, got to go shoot the show. And you'd go shoot this TV show of this other life. You know, so you always had a real life and a TV life, which I think is interesting.
Because I learned on Laguna Beach, like Laguna Beach was very muddy and they crossed over and that's when emotions get really high and things get confusing and you like lose sight of what's real and what's not real anymore. So with the Hills, I was like, no, like I'm having my show life, my real life, and they are not going to cross over. Because I remember even when I first started filming the Hills and I was like, whoa, nobody knows what's real and what's fake anymore. And that is scary.
Yeah, it was wild. I had a front row seat. It was wild.
You sure did.
And so, so 2020, September 2020, you released the book. So good things start happening. Like you said, it's your third book, number 3 on the bestsellers list. I realized you're 33. That's like a lucky number.
Oh, cool.
All these threes. Your first book was more like a biography. Second book was a cookbook. Third book, also a cookbook. Now, on the cover, I noticed, first of all, is that the same furniture that's behind you right now?
Yeah, it is. That's really funny.
It's so cool. It's the same thing, right? But also, you've got bolognese on there, which is one of my favorite things ever. The best I ever had was Chateau Marmont. Have you had theirs?
So good.
The best.
Yeah.
So tell me about this book. It's comfort food that's made with healthy ingredients. How did you pull that off?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, I think that there's been this stigma that comfort food is very fattening. It's very heavy. You know, you can eat it once in a blue moon or whatever. I disagree as long as you're choosing the right ingredients. So all you have to do is make some ingredient swaps and you can in fact eat that stuff every single day and still feel great. And so that's why I'm really excited about it because I love comfort food like most people. You know, it can take us back to our childhood or a certain time in our life or whatever it is. It can really turn a bad day around too.
Yeah.
You know? And so, so I love this book. I really poured my heart and soul into it. I'm most proud of this one out of all 3. And, you know, obviously it's so interesting. I think I finished it 2 years ago, but books take a long time. You know, it's like they have to lay out and it's like all these, you know, edits and stuff. Clearly I had no idea that we would be in the middle of quarantine when this cookbook was coming out, but I'm like, it's interesting timing because everyone's at home now cooking and we want comfort food more than ever. So in that sense, I got very lucky.
I mean, people who've never cooked before, including myself, learned to cook in quarantine.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. So
that's
it's good timing in a sense, which, you know, I got lucky.
Yeah, very serendipitous timing. So in one thing I thought was interesting was that you said that the recipes use ingredients that you could just get at your local supermarket. Like you didn't do it didn't have to be fancy stuff.
Yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. What made you do that?
Yeah, I think I actually have a couple cookbooks where I'm like, where am I supposed to get this ingredient? Like, I don't have a local, you know, Asian specialty store here in Nashville.
Right.
And I'd be like, unless you're living in New York City or maybe in LA too, like people don't have access to that stuff. You know, I live in the country outside of Nashville. Like I don't have access to that stuff either.
Right.
And so I figured if you can't get it at Whole Foods or Amazon or Thrive, I'm not going to, but I also don't use those products anyway. So this is truly like what I use and how I eat on a daily basis. And so it's just true to my lifestyle.
Yeah. And I noticed there's 9 sections of the book. So it's mornings, lunches, soups, cozy nights, sides, quick bites, desserts, drinks, and staples, which I thought
Yeah.
was cool. I did notice the drinks were surprisingly non-alcoholic.
Yeah, so my first cookbook, True Roots, had a whole alcoholic beverage section.
Okay.
I went back and forth on this one, and then ultimately I was like, I don't know. I'm not that much of a drinker. I like a glass of wine from time to time.
Anymore. Anymore.
Anymore. Anymore. Let's just clear that up.
Yeah.
And like I go to dinner and I'll like have a martini or a tequila
Right.
soda or whatever, or a
Right.
couple, but like once in a blue moon. But so I was like, I don't know. I care more about like smoothies and like cool, like hot chocolates, like a peppermint hot chocolate in the middle of winter, or like what do my kids want? Like they want all
Yeah.
that stuff too. Or like pumpkin spice latte. Like that's where my mind is at during the
Right.
fall and winter months. So I don't know, it just made more sense for me.
Yeah, everything sounds really good in there. And I noticed, I'll tell you which ones jumped out at me, okay? You can
Okay.
tell me about them. I
Okay.
noticed Dad's meatballs. So that's part
Yeah.
of your Italian heritage.
Yeah, so my dad's meatballs and sauce. So we grew up, and he would make them every Christmas Eve, and so I've kept up that tradition with my kids. And we make like a big pot of them, and my dad makes the meatballs like huge, like big old meatballs, which I love. So
Yeah.
I do that too. And yeah, it's just one of those things that like that's what I grew up eating, and because my dad's 100% Italian, so I'm half Italian. That was our Christmas Eve tradition.
Yeah. And in the acknowledgments you wrote, Dad, how cool that your meatballs are published, which is
Yeah,
so nice. I thought that was,
yeah.
how Dennis react to that?
What's so funny? He hasn't said anything to me about that
What?
yet. I'm gonna text him and be like, "What the heck, Dad?" My dad's coming in a couple weeks, so I'll give him a
Okay.
hard time about that.
Put a post-it note on that page and see if he
Ew, like, did you read the
notices.
acknowledgments?
Yeah, exactly. I also saw you had pumpkin banana muffins.
So good.
People love
Yeah.
that stuff. I've got a pumpkin bread recipe in my family that I'm going to give you for your next book.
So
Uh,
there's those muffins, and there's actually a banana bread in the cookbook.
okay.
But I want to see yours. I want to compare
Okay.
them.
Well, I'll tell you, it's my family recipe, so you got to call it Gursky's pumpkin bread in the book.
Deal.
But the
Okay.
true story behind it is, it was from when I was in nursery school. We made it in school, and it
Oh
was like
wow.
the only thing I would eat. So my mom got the recipe from the teacher because she's like, Brett loves this so much. So
How funny.
we've passed it down since I
I
was like,
love that. Yeah, I want
yeah.
to see it.
I'll send it to you. And then you also have a lox breakfast ball, which I was like, is this for your Jewish friends? Is that
That's for you. Inspired by you.
Thanks.
Yeah, I used to love lox, bagel with
Yeah,
lox.
of
And I
course.
don't really, I don't eat bagels anymore, but I did just discover these little paleo ones at Whole Foods, which are so good.
Okay.
But I'm obsessed with bowls too, like
Mhm.
any egg bowl or like burrito bowl or whatever. But so this is great because it like checks all of those lox boxes, if you
Vodka.
will,
Oh, lox
without
vodka.
a lox box without being bad for you or whatever. So that's actually one of my favorite breakfasts in the whole book.
Need to try that. And I
Yeah.
saw tortilla crusted chicken fingers. And you and I have crushed many a basket of tortilla chips at like
Yeah.
Spanish Kitchen and all those
Oh
places.
god, that was the
Remember that?
best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So tell me about
Yeah.
those. Those sound pretty good.
Yeah, so those are chicken fingers that are crusted. I take Siete chips, like a whole bag of them. I just like crunch them all up, and then it's oat flour, eggs, a bunch of spices and stuff, and then you do your little assembly line. But so they're like tortilla crusted chicken fingers. They're so yummy.
And these are things did you create these yourself? Do you work with somebody?
So sorry, my throat is all messed up. So I had a chef help me. He actually helped me on True Roots and True Comfort. And what we would do is we would go in the kitchen. And some of them I've had for a while or I've been working on. Some he just did. And then the majority of them we created together. I would come to the table like, here's what I want to do. And we would just start cooking together. So very fun process. And then after we would get the recipes, then I would go and write everything. I wrote every single word in that cookbook, which I'm really proud of. And then obviously I have an editor who would, make it better sometimes.
No, but it's all you.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's a fun process for sure.
Who came up with the Big Mac salad?
Me.
Explain
the
what
Big
that
Mac.
is. What is that?
So a Big Mac,
Yeah.
I used to eat fast food all the time growing up, and I haven't in years. And so I was like, how can we turn that into a healthier version and a salad? That was the only way.
That's cool. So it's like a deconstructed Big Mac.
Exactly. And that's all about the sauce, it's like
Um,
that yummy sauce.
yeah,
So yeah.
and one other one I want to mention that in the dessert section, I'm a huge peanut butter fan. So peanut butter Rice Krispie bars, those
Yeah.
sound amazing.
Yeah, those are really yummy too with the Rice Krispies. Well, you can put peanut butter on anything and it's good.
That's
you
basically what
know?
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, peanut butter and chocolate. But yeah, those are really good too. You got to make some of this stuff.
You know what? A year ago, I would have said I don't know how, but I think I could figure it out now.
There you go. Yeah.
Quarantine's brought out new talents in everybody, I think.
Everyone's a cook now.
Oh yeah, I literally used to go out to eat at restaurants for lunch and dinner.
Yeah.
And now since the quarantine started, I just haven't. And so you kind of learn a lot about yourself when you have to change
Right.
up your routine.
I
Um,
know.
but yeah, so True Comfort, perfect timing, awesome book. I'm gonna definitely try some stuff. Comfort food, but healthy, available everywhere books are sold, climbing
Yeah.
up the Amazon charts. And so now, to quote the Laguna Beach theme song, let's go back to the beginning. Here's where the podcast becomes kind of like my own version of Inside the Actor Studio.
Okay.
So tell everybody where you are from originally.
Okay, so I was born in Colorado. I moved around a lot when I was little. So I was born in Colorado. I moved to Connecticut, and then I moved back to Colorado when I was going into first grade, I believe. And then I moved to Barrington, which is a suburb of Chicago, when I was
Right.
going into sixth grade. And I moved there because my mom got remarried. So I moved with my mom. And then I moved out to Laguna Beach. I think it was October of my freshman year of high school. And then when I graduated Laguna Beach High School, I moved up to LA to pursue a career in entertainment. And I started at Loyola Marymount. I went to
Hmm.
like literally one class, and then I booked a show on UPN, which no longer exists, but it was a network back in the day. So I hosted a show for them, and I had to
Oh,
travel
that's
around the
right.
country
That's right.
called Get This Party Started. But so I dropped out of school. I was like, oh, Dad, unfortunately I can't attend college anymore. I'm working
Yeah.
now.
Wait. So how did your dad end up in Laguna Beach originally? Because was he in
So
Chicago with you guys?
so we were all in Colorado. My parents got a divorce, and then
Right.
my dad ended up getting a job in Orange County. So he moved to Orange County, and then when my mom got engaged, my mom and I moved to Chicago, and my brother actually moved out to California with my dad. And so
It's so interesting that the places they ended up were so pivotal in your life. Like your mom ended up in Chicago, your dad ended up in Laguna Beach, and both of those places changed your life.
I know completely. It's so
Wow.
true.
Yeah.
It's wild to think like, had I never moved to California, obviously like my life would be so different, which
Right.
is crazy to think about.
So it's
Yeah.
almost like your parents' divorce was actually a good thing in a way.
Yeah. I mean, it's as you get older, it's like your whole life starts to make sense and everything comes
Right.
together and you're like, wow, it's actually, I think it's really cool. And
Yeah.
whether you believe in destiny or not, or whatever it is, I just think like everything happens so perfectly that
Yeah.
you're like, wow, it's kind of a trip. I don't know.
No,
I love
I
it.
believe in it for sure because you were meant to end up in Laguna Beach. So let's talk about that for a second. They came to scout at your high school for the show Laguna Beach on MTV because the OC was such a
Yeah.
huge scripted show on Fox, and
Yeah.
MTV was like, let's do the reality version. They
Yeah.
scouted at your high school, and weren't you not even in school the day they came to scout? Isn't that
Yeah,
crazy?
I think I pretended I was sick. So I was at home and everyone was like, oh my God, MTV's here. And I was like, what? I was like, MTV is at the school? I was like, what a day to not be there.
Right,
So I was a day behind everybody. So I went, of course, the next day I went like marching up there. I was like, hi, Chris. So you pick up this 20-page packet, you fill it out. So it must have taken me a day or two at least to fill
right.
that thing out. You go and turn it in, they take your Polaroid, and then they're like, okay, well, we'll let you know if, we want to talk to you. And then from there, they would call people to do on-camera interviews. I didn't get called all week. So I was like, shoot. I was like, I'm clearly not getting it.
Right.
Everyone else, literally everybody else in the school is having an on-camera interview. So I was like, what the heck? So that weekend, I went to Boulder with my mom to go look at the school. This is my junior year. So it's when you're like touring all these colleges.
Right.
And I looked at the school, the whole thing. I'm at the airport at DIA in Denver coming home, and I finally got a phone call. And they were like, can you come directly to the school when you land? I was like, yes. So I landed, went right there. They put me on camera, and they essentially told me I was pretty much the only one that they had cast without
Wow.
actually speaking to, because I sort of like tied everything together because I knew what I was doing. I was young, but I was like, the questions are like, list your 5 best friends and what you hate about them. I'm like, okay. Like totally like beefing everything up, and so I was like the missing piece to the whole puzzle, so
Right.
they
And
knew
you were
they were doing.
actually, yeah, and you were a junior, and the rest, you and Talon were the juniors, and
Yeah.
Stephen and Lauren and Lo were seniors. So I think that's kind of cool that the junior tied it all together.
Yeah.
And I'm going to read you something that I read in the Washington Post about you.
Oh God.
Um, and this is how they described you joining Laguna Beach. She first floated into the public consciousness quite literally on a pool raft as the Laguna Beach first season narrator Lauren Conrad introduced the cast. That would be Kristen, Conrad said scornfully. Wherever Kristen went, drama followed. She thinks she's hot. Cut to Cavallari climbing out of the pool in a red bikini. Okay, I guess she is, Conrad conceded. But she can't stand me. Here's the reason why. Steven, I guess he's kind of her boyfriend, but Steven and I have been close forever. Kristen's the wrong girl for him. I'm waiting for him to figure it out. That shot of Cavallari by herself in the pool quickly established her character. And that was it. You were introduced to the world like that.
And that was it. And
And
it's so funny. It's like now we have such a good sense of reality TV, but at the time, we didn't know what we were doing. I mean, that opening scene, it was like they rented a house. I don't know whose house that was. I'm like in the pool. They like put this like deep red lip on me, which I would never wear. They're like spraying me with a water bottle. They're all right, now get out and like pretend like you're on the phone. I mean, it was like filming a movie. And I'm
Totally.
like, okay, yeah, no problem, sure. Like they knew what they were doing. We just didn't know.
Right.
You know?
You were trying to establish her character.
Yeah.
And so you became a star virtually overnight, right? And so
Yeah.
while it was airing, you were in your senior year, but we were seeing what had happened your junior year.
Right.
So what was that like? Didn't you cry when you saw the pilot? Weren't you upset?
No, so the pilot of course was so PG and they showed all of our parents and us and we were like, oh, this is nothing, sure. And such a watered down version.
Right.
The first episode, I think we got it like a day before it aired or something. And yeah, I cried. I was really upset about how they portrayed me. And it was also weird because like you said, everybody else had graduated and gone on to college except for Talon and I. And I remember going to school and all of a sudden, like the freshmen looked at us differently, and like people, it was just different, and it was a weird time. I mean, it was so much fun,
Yeah.
But it was weird. It was weird for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it looked fun. That's what the interesting thing is, that you thought you were the villain, but to us watching the show, I thought you were the fun one.
Love you. Well, it was weird too because it was like, oh, I'm this, this bitch. I think I can say that. I'm this bitch, but then like in Hollywood, I was getting all these accolades. It was like I was nominated for, for a Big in '05 award. I won like some Hollywood Life award. And so it was like a very confusing time in my life of like, wait, like people hate me because I'm a bitch, but yet like Hollywood loves me. I was like, I don't know what's going on.
You're like, I'll take it. Yeah, exactly. Well, that's why I went up to you at the Fun Fearless Awards, because I was like, this girl's fun from what I've seen. And I'm like, I want to meet her. And so that's how it happened. You know how I knew the show was a phenomenon when Kitson on Robertson made Team Kristen and Team LC shirts. It was you versus Lauren Conrad over Steven. And
Hollister also had those shirts too.
I mean, did that blow your mind that people were buying and wearing shirts that said Team Kristen on them?
Weird. I think maybe it blows my mind more now than at the time. I think at the time you're just like wrapped up in it all and you're like, oh my God, and like so much is happening. And like I never like took a step back to be like, whoa, this is crazy, or that I remember. But now I'm like, whoa, that was crazy.
Yeah. Well, they did that. Do you remember they did that when Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston got divorced? They made Team Aniston and Team Jolie.
Oh yeah.
And then the next time they did it, it was Team Kristen, Team LC. It was wild.
Crazy. I wish I had one of those shirts. I never see, like, that's how much I like didn't realize what was going on. I never went and like got a shirt, and now I'm like, shoot, it would be cool to have one of those. But
I bet, go on eBay, I bet there's a Team Kristen.
That's true.
And didn't you also coin the phrase or the word dunzo? You coined that.
Yeah. Had I known to trademark things, I would have done that back in the day. But yeah, my car is dunzo.
Your car broke down and you said it's dunzo, and then the whole world the whole world started using dunzo as done.
Yeah. And still does.
I wonder if it's in the dictionary. We have to look.
Good question.
Maybe it's not too late to trademark it. I don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So people are still using that word. They're still talking about the show. The episode when you went to Cabo for spring break was recently named one of the 100 best TV episodes of the century so far.
Really?
By Ringer. Yeah, I'll send you the link.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool. know,
And that was just your high school spring break, and now it's one of the best episodes
me
of
living
TV.
my life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Oh, that's funny.
So what do you say when people, ask you if Laguna Beach was scripted? What can you tell them?
It wasn't scripted. It was more putting us in situations that we probably normally never would have been in. It was taking advantage of our the fact that we were so naive about what reality TV was. Where
Right.
now you'd be like, I know exactly what you're doing. Like, I'm not doing that. But back in the like we didn't know. And so it was really just taking advantage of the situation and telling us to do things that we never normally would have.
Right. So they put you in the situation, but your behavior was real. Your reaction was real.
Sometimes and sometimes it wasn't. Editing was very heavily involved.
Okay.
I actually talked about this on the Laguna Beach reunion, but what they would do is they would have, like, one time they had me and my two girlfriends walking down the street and they were just filming us walking. And then they had a producer on the other side of the street and they're like, look over at her when when you pass her. I'm like, okay. And the producer is like making these faces at us. So I was like, oh my God, look at her face. So then they make it seem like I'm talking about Lauren, So it's like that kind of
No.
stuff. It's like, Lauren was never over there. I was never talking about Lauren. But, you watch it, you don't understand all of that stuff. Or they take your audio and they just put it in, or they used to have us do wild lines too. So we'd go in an audio booth and just record lines to make their story make sense. And they're like, okay, sure. Now I'd be like, I'm not saying that. But like, I
Right.
didn't know I could do that and say that I'm not doing that.
Totally.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. And so you did the show for 2 seasons. Season one, Lauren Conrad was the narrator. Season two, you became the narrator. What was different between seasons one and two? You became like the more central character.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe, I guess because Lauren went to well, she was on season two. I don't know. She was at college maybe, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. But you were like the breakout, I guess, at that point.
I mean, thank you.
Yeah, you can own it. But then, obviously, since it's a high school show, when you graduate from high school, you can't really be on the show much anymore.
Well, a lot of people were, but I was like, no, I'm going to be a serious actress and
Right,
I'm going to get away from reality TV. And
right.
I did always work. I always worked. I never did anything, like mind blowing, but I was always consistently working.
Well, let's go through it. Yeah, so you moved to LA and
Yeah.
enter Brett Gursky to welcome you to LA.
Yes.
And that year, that was 2006, Lauren Conrad got her spinoff called The Hills about her
Yeah.
moving to LA. You had other plans. So I remember you booked Veronica Mars, which was a hit
Yeah.
show with Kristen Bell, Ryan Hansen. What do you remember that? What do you remember from that?
God, that was my first acting job ever.
Right.
And I've never seen it. I don't want to see it because I know how bad I was. And so, yeah, I think I was just like, it was my first time being on a real set like that. So I was nervous.
Right.
I don't know. It was just like a crazy experience. Kristen Bell was always so incredibly kind. And, I'll always remember that. She's great. So
Yeah.
that was good.
And you got to play a character that wasn't yourself, which was
I
cool.
think I was a lesbian cheerleader,
Oh, interesting.
you know?
And then 2008, you did a movie called Spring Breakdown, where you met Audra Griffiths, our friend, and
Yeah.
that had a bunch of SNL cast members in it. It was like Amy Poehler, Rachel Dratch, Seth Meyers, big
Yeah.
comedy. Was that fun too?
That was a ton of fun. That was a lot of fun. And yeah, it was cool to be able to kind of like, because I wasn't a main character, to be able to kind of like sit back and watch like Amy Poehler just do her thing. It was
Yeah.
really, really cool. The first movie I did though was called Fingerprints, and I went to
Right.
Oklahoma for a month and I filmed that, and I had Josh Henderson and
Right.
Lou Diamond Phillips and some people. That was a ton of fun. And then I think Spring Breakdown was my second movie. But yeah, I mean, everything that I've done has been such a great experience. And I'm
Yeah.
so happy that I was able to do all of that stuff.
Yeah. Following that, 2008, 2009, did a bunch of acting. You did CSI New York. I remember you were proud of that. You did Wild Cherry with Rumor Willis and Rob Schneider. You
Yeah.
did Van Wilder freshman year with Jonathan Bennett. It was a prequel to Van Wilder.
Yeah.
Nick Nack was in it, our friend Nick.
Yeah.
Nick Nicotera. You got to be the female lead. So it was
Yeah.
were you enjoying the scripted world more than the unscripted world at that point?
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And I think now if I could do anything differently, I think I would have taken it more seriously. It was like, I want to be a serious actress, but I'm not willing to go and like take acting lessons or like do anything.
Right.
Like I wasn't good because I didn't take the time to be good, where I think now I would put more work into it, but I had a lot of fun. I really did. And Yeah, it's just a cool time in my life that I'll obviously always remember.
Yeah. But then 2009, MTV comes calling again for The Hills.
Yeah.
It had been like 3 years since Laguna Beach ended. Lauren Conrad was leaving The Hills. They needed to replace her. Who better to replace her with than KRISTIN Cavallari? I think I was with you the day you got the offer. We went to see Gavin DeGraw at the El Rey, and you had
Oh,
done. Remember, you
wow.
had done his music video,
Yeah.
and we went to dinner first at this place, Luna Park, and you were like, "The Hills is
Yeah.
asking me to do it," and I was like, "Well, what do you want for your career?" And you said, "I
Yeah.
want to have a shoe line," and I said, "Well, listen, The Hills puts you back on the cover of Us Weekly, and if you can use that exposure to promote a shoe line, then it's worth it." And
Yeah, it's so true.
and you
Oh, good advice,
remember that?
girls.
Because I was like, well, ultimately, what's the end goal?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And because that was the thing, it was like, do I go right or left? They are very different careers, you
Yeah,
know? And so, yeah, so that was actually a really hard decision for
I
me.
remember
But
it. I remember
yeah,
that.
clearly now I'm very happy I made that decision to go back.
Yeah, and the
Yeah.
whole marketing campaign was like, the bitch is back. They just
Yeah.
at that point, I remember you said it's an acting job, and I'm just gonna play in whatever role they want me to play and treat it like the acting jobs you've been doing.
Yeah. I looked at it strictly as work.
Yeah, totally. And the castmates at the time were Lo Bosworth from Laguna Beach, Audrina Patridge, Heidi Montag, and
I don't
Spencer
think
Pratt.
Lo was on it. I don't think
Was
Lo
she
was on
not?
it.
Well, she
No.
had been, right? Oh, with you, maybe not. Right.
Was she? No,
I
I
think she
can't
was.
remember. I get all of the shows
I think
mixed
she
up. I
was.
can't
I'm pretty
remember.
sure she was. I don't know. Stephanie Pratt was on it. Brody
Yeah.
Jenner, Justin Bobby. I remember we were at Goal with the producers one day watching football, and I was like, "When you guys are ready to add the Jewish guy with the crush on Kristen, let me know. I'm available to be on the show."
Aw.
Um, but you guys filmed at a lot of the parties I was throwing at the time, so I
Yeah.
pop up in the background, and still to this day, when MTV plays a marathon, people text me like, "I saw you on the Hills." I'm like, "That was a decade ago,"
I love it.
and I was in the
Aw.
background. But you did seasons 5 and 6 of the show,
Yeah.
and are you glad you did it? Obviously, you're glad you did it, right?
I am glad I did it. And I had way more fun doing the hills than I did Laguna Beach because I went into it like, okay, this is a job. Like we talked about earlier, I'm going
Yeah,
to keep my private life private. I'm going to keep it separate. And I just was able to like be that character and I had so much fun doing it. I really
right.
had a good time. Yeah.
Yeah,
And yeah, it opened up a lot more doors for me. You know, I did
yeah,
get that shoe line that I had always wanted. So
exactly.
that was really cool. Which, you know, and now I have Uncommon James, which is where
Yeah,
I'm the happiest professionally and where what I'm also the most proud of professionally. And so everything just sort of lined up for me to be able to launch my own company.
totally. Chain reaction. And so I remember you were on the show, they had you dating Brody Jenner, but in real life you weren't. So it was this kind of
Yeah.
weird, your real life wasn't lining up with what was happening on the show.
Yeah. And in fact, I think I was dating someone off camera too. But
Right.
and he was dating Jade the entire time and they made it seem like they broke up and then we were dating and then they got back together. Or
Right.
I think at one point he was dating Avril Lavigne. Like and I used to be like, but it's in the tabloids that he's dating whoever. But all right. I was like, I don't care. I'm not gonna
Yeah.
ask questions. Yeah.
Roll with it. Yeah. So the
And in
show
fact,
end.
I
Yeah.
think maybe it was the season finale or something. I had to cry. They were like, Kristen, I was filming in Malibu at some restaurant and I some way somehow pulled out real tears. Like I was sad about Brody and like wasn't dating him at all.
All those years of acting were
There you
paying
go.
off.
It all paid off.
It paid off. And so the show, The Hills, ended with season 6. The final episode, July 2010, ended with you and Brody Jenner saying goodbye to each other. The Hollywood signs behind you guys. You hug goodbye. You get in a car. It drives off. Brody watches you go. And then the background drops from behind him. It reveals he's on a studio lot, even though I'm pretty sure you filmed the first part of the scene on the street with the Hollywood
Yeah.
signs. For
Yeah.
real. But then they kind of did this twist at the end with the studio. And what did that ending mean to you? Why they did that?
I loved it because the whole time that The Hills was on, and even Laguna Beach, people were like, is it real? Is it fake? Nobody really knew. And
Right.
so I felt like it was very tongue in cheek. It was like a nod to like, and I personally was like, I love it because now everybody knows that it wasn't 100% real. But a
Right.
lot of people were confused and like, I don't get it. And it's like, oh, well, let's say even if it was 100% real, but they still did that, it was just like a cool way to be like, ha, like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought it was genius. I was so happy with that ending.
I love the end. Yeah. I thought it was a wink to the audience. Like, we'll never tell what was real.
Exactly.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
thought that
it
was
was great.
cool. And then
Yeah.
after The Hills, 2011, you went back to acting. You did the show The Middle on ABC. You
Oh
played
yeah.
You played the hot teacher, and the kids are making a music video, but they don't tell you you're in the music video.
That's right.
Was that fun to go back to scripted TV?
Yeah. That was fun. That was a fun show to be on for sure.
Yeah. And then also in 2011, Dancing with the Stars came calling.
Yeah.
Did that show. It was the same kind of thing. I think it was you, me, Audra, and Ben Savage.
Yeah.
We went out and you said, guys, Dancing with the Stars wants me to do it. And we're back at Ben's house. You were like bartending at his bar.
Oh
And
yeah.
same kind of thing. I was like, what do you want? At that point, you wanted a brand. You wanted, shoe line, jewelry line. And again, it was the same kind of thing. This puts you in the spotlight
Yeah.
to advertise whatever you want. And I think you were behind the bar at Ben's house and you were like, all right, I'll do it. Next thing you know, you're on Dancing with the Stars. They partner you with Mark Ballas.
Yeah.
I went every episode. I was in the audience with your mom, Judy. We
Yeah.
cheered you on, and Rob Kardashian was on the same season, so it would be like the KRISTIN Cavallari table and the Kardashian table. We were like competing groups, like Kim and Courtney and Chris over there, me and Judy and your friends over there. What do you remember from that experience, Dancing with the Stars?
It, it was the scariest thing I've ever done. I've never been so nervous for anything in my life, but I had so much fun. And that feeling of just accomplishing that fear, overcoming your fear, was so huge for me. So the first episode, I was like, I can't do this. I was like, I'm going to forget everything when I get out there. Like, I literally thought I was going to like throw up and die. And then each episode, it was like, it was fun. So then by the third episode, my last episode,
Yeah.
I was just having fun, it was a blast. And it was interesting because Jay and I had broken up. So Jay and I got engaged very quickly, and then we broke up right before I did Dancing with the Stars. And then in the midst of it all, we had gotten back together. And that third week, that third episode, that was the week that like everyone talked about a tough time in their life. And ABC was like, we want you to talk about your breakup with Jay. And I was like, no, I'm not talking about how I called off my engagement. Like, no, I'm not doing that. And then he was in the audience that week, and then I got kicked off. So I was like, all right, well, fine. So then Jay and I got back together. I was like, fine, I had a great time, but then it allowed me to then go to Chicago and be with Jay.
Right, I remember that. I was there the night you got voted off. We were shocked. Do you remember I got you like a hosting gig for Just Dance 3? They released their new game.
Yeah.
It was at the Beverly. So we're like, oh, it's perfect. It's the night of Dancing with the Stars. We'll go to Dancing with the Stars. We'll go right over there. Then you get voted off. You have to go to Jimmy Kimmel.
Oh, yeah.
Then we went to the party. You hosted the party. Then you got on a plane and went to New York to do like Good Morning America.
Oh, God, that's right.
That was the craziest night because you weren't supposed to get voted off week 3.
Yeah, well.
It was unjust. I'm still upset about it.
Me too.
So 2012, 2013, you did a few episodes of the show The League where you played yourself, but they scripted a version of yourself. KRISTIN Cavallari. Was that fun playing a scripted version of yourself?
Yeah, that was so much fun. And that show is just so funny. And
Yeah.
the creators of the show, I absolutely love. And they're just comedic geniuses. So yeah, it was a ton of fun.
Yeah, if people haven't seen that, find the League episodes with Kristen. It's really good. And so then over the next few years, you became a mom of 3. Camden was born in 2012, Jax in 2014, Sailor in 2015. Now they're 8, 6, and 4.
Yeah.
Motherhood, you focused on that for a little bit, while at the same time became part of E, you were hosting their red carpet shows. So the Oscars, the Golden Globes, the Emmys, the Grammys, and you really got to like use your love of fashion to do these pre-shows, and that became a really good gig for you. What was that like to be at the Oscars every year?
Yeah, it was wild. I was so nervous. I remember, so I did the Oscars years ago. I think when I was pregnant with Jackson. It was like a one-off thing. And then they asked me to come back maybe 2 years later for the Golden Globes. And I remember I was so nervous for the Golden Globes. And then they put me under contract, and I was like, wow, this is awesome. And it worked out very well for my lifestyle because I could fly into LA for 2-3 days, do the shows, come home to my babies, because that was the thing. It was like when I was raising my kids and in Chicago, Jay was playing football, I couldn't go take a job that was going to keep me in LA for 2 months. So it had to be these like quick things. So it's perfect because like you said, my love of fashion, I grew up watching those award shows. My mom and I used to watch Melissa and Joan Rivers all the time. So it's sort of like everything coming together. So it's really, really cool. Very, very fun. And I'm still honored that I'm part of those shows. Obviously this year it's slightly different with COVID, you know,
Mhm.
but up until COVID, I was doing it for them. And it was like one of those things where I still have to pinch myself that I'm there, and
Yeah,
it's cool. It's
that's
really
awesome.
cool.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
perfect gig for you. Yeah, you're great at that. And
Yeah.
then we mentioned 2016, your first book came out, Balancing in Heels. That was,
Yeah.
how would you describe that? That was more like a biography, right? Or like a how-to?
Yeah, it's a lifestyle book. So it sort of like touched on every area of my life. There are, like 20 recipes or something. It talked about me being a mom, and fashion was a large part of it. And just kind of, what else? I can't even, honestly, I can't even remember now. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'll be honest with you though, that wasn't really the book that I wanted to do. I pitched when I went, so I put together two book proposals, a cookbook proposal and a lifestyle proposal. First, what I did was the cookbook proposal because that was what I wanted to do. And then my agent was like, well, everyone's really into these lifestyle books right now. So can you whip up a proposal for a lifestyle book too? I was like, oh, geez. All right, sure. So then I went to New York and pitched both books together to all of these different publishers. And I got some offers for the lifestyle, some offer for cookbook, some offers for both. And I ultimately decided, let's do the lifestyle book. Hopefully it does well. And then I can do a follow-up cookbook.
Right. And it was a
But
big hit.
cookbooks were what I wanted to be
That's your
doing.
thing. Yeah. Well, that first book was a hit, so that allowed you to write more books.
Yeah.
2017, you launched Uncommon James.
Yeah.
Explain what the company is and where the name comes from and all about that.
Yeah, so Uncommon James is now it's more of a lifestyle brand. At the time when I launched it, it was just jewelry. It was a very small jewelry collection. And it's very effortless, everyday pieces, but at an affordable price point, because I think that fashion should be accessible to everybody, and style is really what you make of it. And so I think I just wanted to create an affordable line of really dainty, effortless pieces. And James is my daughter's middle name. It's Sailor's middle name. It was my brother's middle name. So I always knew I wanted to do something with James.
Hmm.
And then it was my 30th birthday. I was in Mexico with a bunch of my friends, and we were just spitting out names like, okay, well, what sounds good with James? And Uncommon got thrown out, and I was like, I love that. And so it just kind of stuck. So here I am 3.5 years later, and it's morphed into so much more than I ever would have imagined in a million years. We have a home line. I have Little James, which is baby and kids clothing.
Right.
We just launched Demi-Fine, which is 14 karat gold plated sterling silver and real diamonds,
Oh, wow.
which is awesome. So we're dipping our toe in fine jewelry. And then we're getting ready to launch some exciting things in 2021. I have 2 stores. I'm getting ready to open Dallas in the spring. And so it's just wild that it's become this full-blown company, and I'm having the time of my life. And that's the one thing I'm like, this is really happening. Like, I'm just so thankful
Oh, yeah.
that like this is where I'm at, and I have this company. It's incredible.
Yeah, it's awesome. I remember you told me the name Uncommon James. We were at the Nice Guy in LA. You were in town for something.
Oh, you
And
have
you're
such a
like,
good memory.
yeah, I remember everything. And so I remember you saying, I'm going to start this company, Uncommon James. And you basically told me what your plan was. And to have watched it play out over the last 3 years has been incredible. One of your jewelry lines was inspired by Italy, right? Your Italian
Yeah.
roots, kind of like your
Yeah.
dad's meatballs. Um, didn't you find a place in Italy called Cavallari?
So, there was okay, I
Wait,
got to go for Very Cavallari. I went to Italy last fall, and I got to meet a bunch of Cavalleries that I didn't even know
oh, the
existed,
people, right?
which was awesome. And I went to the town that my great grandfather grew up in, this little tiny town called Monterredo, and it's just so beautiful. I got to see the actual townhouse that he grew up in, and meet people that knew him, and so that was really cool. And I was staying in Tuscany, and just that Italian countrystide is so whimsical and romantic and beautiful that inspired our fall collection. And
Cool.
I was able to shoot the campaign at this Sunstone Winery, which is outside of LA, and it looks like Italy. And so it's a collection that means a lot to me, and it's cool that the Cavaliers can inspire so much in my
Well, I was
life.
going to say, it's cool that you can pull so much from your real life for all these things, cookbooks,
Yeah.
jewelry. That's neat.
Yeah.
2018, you opened your first Uncommon James store in Nashville. That was a major accomplishment. I know that meant a lot to you. 2018, you released your second book, True Roots, your first cookbook. 2018, Very Cavallari premieres on E! It was on
Yeah.
3 seasons, 2018, 2019, 2020. Before you tell me how that show came about, what I want to say about Very Cavallari is, do you remember when you and Jay first got together and I was like, this is a TV show? I was
No.
like, you guys have to do a show like Newlyweds, like Nick and Jessica. And because you guys had different personalities, but you complemented each other well. And you were
Yeah.
like, Jay will never do reality TV. So I just kind of put the idea in the back of my head. And then years later, Very Cavallari comes out. He becomes like a bit of a breakout character. And I was like, I knew it. I knew that would make good TV. Uh,
That's so funny.
yeah,
So when I first pitched the show, I wasn't even really supposed to be on it. It was more like Vanderpump Rules. And I
right,
really wanted to do it for Uncommon James. It's
right,
like, it'll be about the employees. I won't be on it. I'll pop in and out. It'll be great.
right.
So we filmed a pilot. And then the people at E were like, well, we'll do it if Kristen will be on it more. And I was
Well,
like,
yeah.
oh, shoot, this is not what I wanted to do. But they
Well,
were
do you
like,
remember Keeping Up with the Kardashians started because they had a store called Dash, and it was basically
yeah,
about the store. So, and that obviously
right. And look how that turned out.
that worked out pretty well for them, but it became more
Yeah.
about them, than the store.
Yeah. So I had to get Jay on board and I had to get a friend on board. And so I still was like, there's no way Jay is going to do this, but
Right.
he agreed. And then even then, like from season 1 to season 3, it was way more about us in the very end of it. And it was
Right.
because, E kept being like, well, this is what everybody wants to see is your guys' dynamic, which I totally get it. I get it. And so it like slowly morphed into more and more of us.
Right.
And which was fine because I also felt like initially I was more than happy to like put all the warts with Uncommon James out there because we were a startup. What we were going through was very real. And the more I put out there, the more business owners I had coming up to me being like, we're going through the same thing, or like, I've been there, like whatever it was. But then like as the company grew and it became more of a legitimate company, I wanted to pull back anyways.
Right.
So it all kind of worked out. But yeah, Jay was a massive breakout star. He's incredibly sarcastic and has that dry sense of humor, which edits
Totally.
very well.
Right.
So good one-liners. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember when I first met him, I was like, does he like me? You're like, yeah, he likes you. That's just his personality because he's so dry.
You never really know.
Yeah, I was not sure at first. But yeah, I remember when the first season came out, I was like, I wish it's more about Kristen. And then seasons 2 and 3 were more about you. And the show was a hit, and Uncommon James blew up from it. People want a piece of what they see on TV, and they can now go to the stores in person. I think you should do like eventually come back with like Very, Very Cavallari or something like that, or like a Very Cavallari Christmas or something.
Yeah.
But you managed to like keep your kids off the show, which I thought was interesting. And you've sort of said if they want that when they grow up, that's okay. But right now, I'm going to keep them off TV.
Yeah, they're little. I want them to have as normal of a life as possible. And that was one of the challenging parts with doing the show. It was like the biggest part of my life was not on the show. And my life is very boring. I know it doesn't seem like it, but it was a problem actually with like, what are we going to put on the show? What are the storylines going to be? What are we going to talk about? And it was like, guys, I don't know. Like, this is my life. Like,
so you had to go like whitewater rafting to have a show.
I mean, literally, because it's like there's nothing else going on. And I was very adamant when I did the show. I was like, I'm home every night, no later than 5 to have dinner with my family. I never film on the weekends. Like, these are my hard lines. And they used to say to me, like, you have so many boundaries that it's hard to work with. And I'm like, I know, but that's the only way I'm going to do it.
You stuck to your guns. You made a good show. So the last thing I want to mention career-wise, you hosted Paradise Hotel last year.
Yeah.
You went to Mexico. What was that like hosting a dating show? You hadn't done that before.
Well, it was so much fun, but it was crazy because the first episode was live too.
Right.
And I'm on a big network TV. I'm by myself. I'm hosting. Like, I was so nervous. I was so nervous, but it was so much fun. It was fun. Like, I loved it. I really did love it. Was really bummed that it didn't do as well as we had hoped. But again, it was just one of those experiences that like, that's really freaking cool that I'm able to say I did that. It's awesome.
Yeah.
So,
you were really good at it too. Yeah, you're good at that. And you had a front row seat to a dating show, which is must be wild in person to see it.
And we were all in, like, me and the producers are like in, my like green room and everything. Like, oh my God, like who's hooking up with you? Like, what's going on? Like, you become so invested.
Right.
So
like
funny.
we as
Yeah. I still talk to a lot of the producers, but I still talk to some of the cast members too, because
really?
You become close with them, and so we sort of became like this little family.
Yeah, I was gonna say we as viewers only saw an hour a day, but you were there 24 hours a day for weeks.
Yeah.
So you saw everything. Yeah. So that brings us to 2020 when you finally did my podcast. That's where we are now. We've come full circle. So I always like to ask my guests before they go to give some advice. what advice would you, Kristen Cavallari, give to someone who wants a career like yours, either as a TV personality or an entrepreneur building a brand? What advice can you give to people?
I think the best advice I can give is to really figure out who you are and then be that, instead of wanting to emulate, whoever is already successful or whatever, but someone's already doing that. Like, that's what's so great about all of us individually, is that we're unique. And so, like, I'm not following in anybody's footsteps. I'm creating my own path, and I'm staying true to who I am. And I've always been very authentic, and I've never come to the table with an agenda or try to be somebody that I'm not. And I truly think that that's the only reason why I'm still around so many years later. Because people know that they're going to get that from me. I'm very honest. I'm blunt. I don't have a filter. And I think that, I just think that's it. You have to figure out who you are and stay true to who you are.
Yeah, it worked for you. It's obviously working. I mean, 16 years after Laguna Beach, I feel like your personal brand is bigger than ever,
Yeah,
So that's good advice. And the very last thing we do here at On the List is called the mystery question, where my guest from the previous podcast writes a question, seals it in an envelope. I don't even know what it is. We've been doing this we've been doing this since episode 1 with Ben Savage. And so it basically links every episode together to the next one.
I love that. So you'll have to write mine for me, though.
I was just thinking, like, now moving forward with Zoom, you'll have to email it to me. I won't look. I'll print it. I'll seal it in an envelope for the next guest.
I love that. That's
Whoever
so
that
great.
may be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
This is number 56. My guest on the last podcast was Frank Karachi. He directs all the Adam Sandler movies.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we talked about his new movie, and he wrote a question. Even I don't know what it is. I hope it's a good one.
I love that.
And let's see what it says. Ooh, this is interesting. Frank Karachi wrote, "Is it ever okay to lie? You can lie with your answer."
Wow, that's a really good question.
Frank Karachi.
So I am going to go with no, because I actually think lying is a cop-out. And I think that you can tell the truth without hurting somebody's feelings, or like, I just, I used to tell white lies of like, I don't want to go here or whatever, like, oh, I'm busy, or like, no, it's actually okay to be like, listen, I'm not in the mood, or like whatever it is, I'm not a fan of lying. I think I'm a very honest, direct person. And so I appreciate when people are like that with me.
Yeah, and that question was actually perfect because you just talked about be your authentic self.
Look at that!
That fit really well together. But I agree with you. Lying is like my biggest pet peeve. Because I'd rather someone tell the truth, even if it's going to hurt, than to find out later that it was a lie. And I think
then you don't trust anything that they say.
Right. And I think the universe has a way of making sure the truth always comes out. Like if you lie like, oh, I can't do that, I'm going to be out of town, you're going to run into that person at a restaurant or something.
Exactly. It is so true. It's never good. And then if you do lie, it's like, how can you keep up with all of your lies? I'm like, I'm stressed out. I don't remember what I said. It's like, I can't do it.
That's true. It's actually so much easier to just live an honest life so you don't have to keep up with your lies.
Exactly.
I love that. Well, we did it, Kristen. We did the podcast. I can't believe it. That's a wrap on episode 56. Anything else you want to mention or promote or say before we go?
I don't think so. It's just so good to see you, and I appreciate you having me.
Oh my God, I appreciate you doing this. I can't wait to see you in person. Maybe I might have to come to Chicago or Nashville or something.
Let me know.
Because I don't know when I'm going to be back in LA soon. But thank you, Kristen Cavallari, for doing this. It means so much to me. I hope you had fun. If you don't already have her new book, True Comfort, make sure to get it and pick up Balancing in Heels and True Roots while you're at it. Have the whole Kristen Cavallari collection. Thank you again, Kristen. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.
Love you, Gursky.
Mwah.
Mwah. Bye.
Bye.